There's war in the land of Lego Castle. A dragon and a lion faction fight for the throne. This story has been done many times by now, but let's go back to the original dragon faction on this episode of Tavern Talk. The early years of Lego Castle had many notable factions, starting with the Black Falcons and Crusaders in 1984, with the Forestmen being added in 1987. The fourth faction, and definitely a very notable one, was the Black Knights in 1988, not to be confused with the Black Knight, the leader of the Black Falcons. The Black Knights were the first dragon faction to be introduced into the Lego Castle theme. They appeared in 14 different sets, and were introduced in 1988. Like many other factions, they did not originally start with the name Black Knights. When people did refer to them, they usually called them the Dragon Knights. The first set they appeared in was 1988's 1584, Knights Challenge, a very notable jousting set in early Lego Castle. This set was the first use of the Black Knights horse bardings, and had 3 Black Knights. This set would have a later re-release in 1989 as 6060, Knights Challenge. These sets are basically the same set, and I can't figure out why Lego re-released it under a different set number. One thing that does make these sets stand out is that they are the only sets to have both the Crusaders and Black Knights in it. Now, one of my biggest issues with the Black Knights, and something you'll see a lot while looking at these sets, is that the Black Knights didn't have a unique torso printing. They used a mixture of different armor prints and colors. These same prints we saw in Knights in both the Black Falcons, Crusaders, and later on the Royal Knights. This did allow people to use these figures for whatever faction, but to me these figures just didn't stand out because of it. It also makes it sometimes hard to know what faction the figures belong to, unless they are holding a shield. Black Knights had 2 different shields, a small triangle shield with a red background, a blue border, and a dragon that had yellow accents.
Isn't that shield on your shirt?
Well, I wasn't gonna mention it, but now that we're talking about my shirt, I highly recommend Brick Monarch Shop if you need to scratch that classic castle itch. Like, I'm talking really scratchy, because we all know buying those sets do help. But I need more castle. I need more castle! So if you want to bring out your inner castle obsession, you can get t-shirts with a variety of factions, including the Black Knights. Or maybe just decorate that one corner of your Lego room that doesn't have shelves piled high with Lego. You can get wall signs or light up LED desk lamps. Use code BRICKING10 for 10% off. The second shield was introduced in 1992, which was the first introduction of the long minifigure shields. Having both long and triangle shields is something we would see many factions have in future Lego Castle themes. The logo for the long shields used a similar color scheme, but had a yellow background and a blue border, with the dragon itself being blue with red accents. Now, one notable part of the Black Knight's dragon is based off of the Wyvern dragon, which only had 2 legs and wings instead of the 4 legs we saw in the 2010 and 2013 Dragon Knights. Even though the dragon would be depicted in a few different poses, this would be the same style of dragon we would see on all the Black Knights accessories, such as flags, sails, and horse bardings. Black Monarch's Castle was the second set in 1988 to feature the Black Knights. It was also called the Black Fortress in the UK. This castle was advertised for its ability to swing the walls out so that you could get into the back or have a larger wall to siege. Instead of grey walls, it used black as the main color, which made it stick out compared to other castles we had gotten so far. This set was also the first to feature the small Black Knight's flag. On top of that, this set contained 12 soldiers to protect the castle and was the first castle to have a dungeon to lock up your enemies. Very useful for when dealing with the Forestmen. In 1990, 2 more sets came out. That same year, we got Knight's Stronghold, which featured a small wall that could be attached to the Black Monarch's castle. It also had 3 Black Knights seemingly fighting 2 Black Falcons. Black Monarch's Ghosts contained a small build which could be connected to Black Monarch's castle, or Knight's Stronghold. 1990 brought a key element to the Lego Castle world, the hinged helmet. This revolutionary helmet was a motorcycle helmet with a visor connection, and would become a staple in many Lego Castle themes to come. Oddly, in a 1990 US magazine, and in all magazines in 1991, the Black Knights and Crusaders were put under one banner of one faction, and were just called Castle or Knights. In 1992, Lego Castle turned into the beloved original theme we know today. All but the Black Falcons were given a name. 5 sets featuring the Black Knights came out in 1992, with 3 of them being small builds. Dual Defender not only came with 2 identical soldiers, but also came with a double launcher catapult. Black Knight's Guard Shack was a small tower with a ghost and soldier. The smallest was Black Knight, a great set for easily building an army of mounted units. The last 2 are some of the most iconic sets from the Black Knights, and also heavily featured the new long shields. Sea Serpent featured 2 Black Falcons and 3 Black Knights. This set was very unique in early Lego Castle because up till this point, we had only seen small boats. It was the first of a small line of castle ships to feature a sail. Some of the most notable sets from that list are the Troll Warship and the Skeleton Ship from the fantasy era of Castle. The last set from that year is the Black Knight's Castle. This set is iconic and usually the set people think of when they think of the Black Knights. It also is considered to be one of the best LEGO castles ever made. There are many highlights from this set, such as the first large castle faction flag appearing. Up to this point, most factions only had a small flag, but the release of LEGO Pirates had many influences on Castle, including large flags. After this set, other castle flags would be made out of cloth or soft plastic, which does make this the only flag for Castle to be made out of hard plastic. 1992 was the introduction of the new dragon plumes and dragon wings that would adorn helmets. These plumes brought new character to the Black Knights. Later, these plumes would be used for the Dragon Masters. Now, another notable feature for the Dungeon Master's Castle is this knight with the white plumes. He may seem like many of the other knights from the LEGO Castle line, but on his own is worth over $100 and is definitely in the top 5 most expensive Castle figures. Yes, this plain looking knight. The reason for this is the white dragon plumes on his helmet only came in this set and alone go for a lot. Personally, I think this set is one of the best uses of this version of the raised base plate. Between the colors and the way the gate and walls work around the ramp section, just looks so good. These last 3 sets were a changing point for the faction and for LEGO Castle. In March of that year, the minifigures went from smiley faces to actually printed faces. After 1992, only a few small sets were released for the Black Knights: King's Archer, King's Catapult, Black Knight's Boat, and lastly Battering Ram. One of the few sets in LEGO Castle to feature a battering ram not attached to a siege tower. It is very interesting that 2 of these sets had the title of King in it, even though we never got a king figure for this faction. One unique item for the Black Knights that came out in 1992 was this sew-on patch. I have no clue what it is from, but it is a real LEGO Castle item. My best guess is that it's a Legoland exclusive. After 1993, the Black Knights changed foes and started going up against the Dragon Masters, but would start to get phased out in favor of the new world of LEGO Castle, featuring Dragon Masters, Dark Forest, Royal Knights, and Fright Knights. One interesting detail is that the Black Knights and Dragon Masters would share a very similar logo on their long shields, except they were different colors. Some even say that the Black Knights are basically just dark mode of the Dragon Masters. These 2 factions are clearly enemies, so why do they share the same logo? My best guess is that this is LEGO doing what they do many times and just reusing something they already have rather than creating something new. Now, this does get even stranger when you realize there are 2 examples of Dragon Masters wielding Black Knight shields. First is in the Royal Knight set, Royal Drawbridge, where you can clearly see a Dragon Master with a Black Knight's long shield clipped to its saddle. And no, this isn't just LEGO messing up the box art, because they would never do that. The second time you see this is in Dark Forest Fortress, from the Dark Forest sub-theme. A Dragon Master who's driving a carriage wields a small Black Knight shield, while he has a Dragon Master shield clipped to the side of his cart. He also happens to be wearing the wrong color helmet, but we're just gonna look past that for now. Now, many of you may say,
Brad, this is super nitpicky. It doesn't even matter.
and I say to that, it matters to me, okay? It matters to me. Unless we talk to the designers, we won't truly understand this mystery. Maybe the LEGO designers just forgot that Black Knights and Dragon Masters were 2 different factions. Or maybe this is the designers hinting at some LEGO Castle lore. Look, we all know it's probably the first option, but we need more LEGO lore, so we're gonna go with the second option. Surprisingly, Black Knights made an appearance in LEGO Racers on Royal Knights Raceway. You first see their logo on the top right of the map on the loading screen. When driving through the map, you can see some builds that have the Black Knights logo on it and resemble Black Knights castles with the black and gray look plus red roofs. Another very interesting connection between the Black Knights and later castle factions. How the Black Knights do connect to other factions is very interesting. The Black Knights are set in the world of original LEGO Castle. On a base level, this includes all factions from Yellow Castle to Fright Knights. Before the Black Knights introduction, the Black Falcons and Crusaders were the 2 knight-based factions, and fought for supremacy of the land, while the Forestmen mostly kept to themselves and robbed a bit of treasure. We have no insight into where the Black Knights were during these early parts of the Black Falcons and Crusaders battles. My guess is that they were there all along, but are a bordering kingdom to the other two factions, and didn't feel the need to join the war on one side or another. With set titles like Black Monarch's Ghost and Black Monarch's Castle, we can only assume that the Black Monarch is the leader of the Black Knights. Some say that maybe the knight with the white plumes is the Black Monarch. My best guess is the knight in all black in the Black Monarch's Castle is the Black Monarch, but later passed away in battle, and that's why we get the Black Monarch's Ghost. We can start tracking the Black Knights lore in a 1988 magazine. This magazine shows the Black Knights hosting a jousting match with the Crusaders and Black Falcons. These three factions seem to be at peace. Meanwhile, the Forestmen seem to be content to watch the proceedings from the comfort of their hideouts. This was a time of tournaments and working together to defend the land. My best guess is that this is the time of the Black Monarch. In an early 1989 magazine, the Crusaders, Black Knights, and Black Falcons are besieged by the Forestmen, who have become emboldened in their attempts for treasure. This period doesn't last very long, because in a later 1989 magazine, the Crusaders, Black Falcons, and Black Knights are back in a time of peace and tournaments, with even the Forestmen seemingly swearing fealty. Sadly, with rogues like the greedy Forestmen, peace doesn't last long. In a 1990 magazine, the Forestmen start stealing riches and the Black Knights and other factions start to fight back. My guess is that during the Second Forestmen War is when the Black Monarch is killed, because in real time this is when we see the Black Monarch's ghost appear, and because in 1991 magazines we see the Black Knights and Crusaders become one faction. My best guess is that after the Black Monarch dies, some noble brings together the two factions under one banner of Lion and Dragon to fight back against the Forestmen and protect the kingdom's riches and princesses. In 1992 magazines, the fighting has gotten even worse. With the introduction of the Wolfpack, the Black Knights have split back into their own faction, which a magazine describes as, "The Black Knights are a powerful force in the kingdom. They will not back down from any conflict."
The Black Knights and the Lion Knights are fighting for the new castle.
According to that commercial, the Lion Knights and Black Knights have started fighting for the new castle. And in a magazine it says that, while the Black Knights and Lion Knights fight for the throne, the Forest people worry about the Wolf people, the new gentlemen robbers in town. While the Black Knights and Lion Knights fight for the throne, another part of the Black Knights fights off the Wolfpack, who are making raids into their land for treasure. In this short from LEGO, we can see the Black Knights capture some Wolfpack, who end up breaking out and then robbing the Black Knights. During this time, there are very few mentions of the Black Falcons. The Black Falcons seem to have either broken apart or been so weakened by past wars that they drew back to their own lands, while the Black Knights and Lion Knights fought for the throne. We do see a few Black Falcons enjoying the riches of the Black Knights in the Sea Serpent, which gave me a theory. Now there's one big story that you have to know to understand my theory. In early times of LEGO Castle, Sir Richard led the Lion Knights, and the Black Knight led the Black Falcons, and they were rivals that fought over the kingdom. If you want more details on this, check out my Crusaders video. In the 90th anniversary Lion Knight's Castle, it mentions the Black Knight went mad. My theory is that when the Black Knight went mad, this led to tears in the Black Falcon faction, which led to some of the Black Falcons joining up with the Black Knights. In both 1993 magazines and Dragon Master commercials, the world of LEGO Castle has changed. The landscape is more mountains rather than smooth plains, which we saw in previous magazines and commercials. These new magazines show the Black Knights and Wolfpack fighting it out with the Dragon Masters. According to one 1993 magazine, the Dragon Masters have arrived. They control the fierce flying dragons. Can the power of Black Knights and the cunning Wolfpack stop their reign? Another magazine has this description. The Black Knights are sailing out to get the treasure. Can the dragon save the treasure this time? The Knights fear no evil. They battle the dragon to get the treasure. On the box of the Dark Dragon's Den, it says, the Dragon Masters, led by Magisto the Wizard, have learned to control the beastly fire-breathing dragons. Members of the Black Knights and Wolfpack know that through bravery and cleverness, the Dragon Masters can be defeated. Few of them, however, are willing to chance encountering Megisto's magical powers. From all this, my theory is that the Black Knights went out sailing for treasure, maybe even to fuel the war with the Lion Knights, and came across the land of the Dragon Masters, Royal Knights, Dark Forest, and Fright Knights. Either a new island altogether or in a different region of the same island. This would explain the change in landscape. Now the Wolfpack may have found peace with the Black Knights and went sailing with them, or just followed the Black Knights hoping to snag whatever treasure the Black Knights found. In 1995 magazines, it seems that the Dragon Masters have pushed off the Black Knights, and turned their attention to a new foe, the Royal Knights. But that's a story for another video. Now we can tell the Black Knights are still in this land when the Dragon Masters and Royal Knights are fighting, due to LEGO racers. My final theory is that some of the Black Knights did split off and join the Dragon Masters, and that is why a few of the Dragon Masters do use Black Knight shields. That or some of the Dragon Masters picked up Black Knight shields after a battle and went, close enough. Now whatever the full lore of the Black Knights might be, they were a turning point of LEGO Castle. So much of what we saw with this faction was used in future LEGO Castle themes. The Black Knights were heavily influenced by all the new parts introduced around them, which made them stick out among the original factions. In a way, they were the last vintage faction and the first classic faction. There are plenty more castle stories to come, but until then, I hope you enjoyed this pint of castle knowledge.